Nikki.
I'm Rachel, and we are the Stitch Sisters.
Yes, we are.
And we're coming back with part 2 of our Crochet Along With Us series.
Look, I'm just going to pull up my lovely ball of wool and unhook it. And look at my big rib. I'm very excited. You can see I've got a bit of a colour change going on there. And I was very excited because orange is next.
Yes.
I love a variegated wool.
So if you've just stumbled across this video, you might not know that this is part of a series that we're doing. Nikki wanted me to teach her or remind her how to crochet because it's been a while, hasn't it? And I thought, well, why don't we just film it as we do it, and then anybody else that wants to learn can. So we've already filmed a 1 hour long video where we go through lots of different things: gauge squares, chaining, double crochet, single crochet, how to pick your pattern size and that kind of thing. The yarn, exactly. So go and watch that if you haven't already, or if you think it would be useful. If you've just watched it, and we do say in there, if you want to ask us any questions, leave them in the comments, and we will reply to them at the start of the second video. We've only just finished editing the first video, and we're filming the second video before you'll see it. So you can still ask us questions in this one, and we'll address them in the third video.
Yes. Or we could also just reply to individual questions on YouTube as well. We'll see how many we get.
Yes. So before we dive into part 2, shall I just tell you a little bit about mine? Because I literally just finished this, so I thought, well, I'll pop it on soon as we're doing crochet. So this is basically, I'm going to have to think of a new name for it, because a shirt mixed with a jacket is a shacket. So I think this might be like a sweater gun. A jumper gun. It's a jumper gun. Yeah. Because it was going to be an open cardigan, but at the last minute I decided, because it's so bulky, it's going to be falling off my shoulders all the time. Yeah. So I decided to overlap the front bands and then put a wider band on the bottom. And you said it looks kind of Japanese. Like
it's almost kimono-ish. It does give me kimono vibes.
Yeah, well, it will be because it's all rectangles. Yeah. So if you have watched the last video, then you'll remember that I said that when you're doing your gauge swatches, your gauge squares, if you want to just do that for practice, then this is the sort of project that you could then turn it into. Yeah. Because the whole thing is just 20 centimetre. Yeah. 20 centimetre squares. And then basically you've got 6 panels on each front, and then there's 5 by 3, so 15 across the back, and then the sleeves are 4 by 3, so the shoulder is here, and then that's the sleeve, and then it's just got ribbing on the rest of it, which is straight lines. So it's all ribbed because I decided I wanted to kind of create this sort of weaved sort of crosshatch type of look. So the ribs
gives it a lot of texture.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
I love it.
And it just came about because my yarn is stored in my sewing room on an open shelf, and my puppy,
Love
Lola, started to get into the habit of sneaking into the sewing room, grabbing a ball of yarn, taking it out to the back garden, and then I didn't see until much later that she'd got another one, and then obviously it had to go in the bin because it had been in the mud and it was all shredded.
And covered in dog saliva.
Yeah, exactly. And she's done that on so many now that all of these yarns were from projects that I had half kind of done. Okay. But I couldn't get any more of the exact same yarn.
To finish it.
Yeah, so rather than just kind of waste it, I thought, well, let's do a patchwork option.
Absolutely.
So I can do a tutorial for this at some point if anybody's interested. Maybe put it on the blog or something.
But we were talking about possibly I might make one too, because it might be my next project. This is how excited I am about crochet, that I'm already planning my next project.
Done one rib and she's
done
ready.
One rib. I'm ready for the next one.
So let's get back into that. Oh, good, because once you start, it's dangerous. Now, I know you bought this wool from Lovecraft.
Yes.
And they're the worst because their marketing's actually really good. So once you're on their mailing list, they get me at least once a week. Once a week they'll send me something, and next thing I know I'm browsing, I'm putting things in my basket and I have to stop myself because you don't need it, you don't need it.
Damn you, Lovecraft.
Yes. But they have sales on all the time, and there's really good prices and stuff sometimes, and you just think, well, I'll get it now whilst it's cheap and then I'll use it at some point. But
I need to at least get a front finish before I'm willing to buy any more yarn.
Yes, it is good. You know, with sewing, it's good to have your next project lined up.
Absolutely.
But the other thing that you will realise with crochet and knitting, if it's not something that you've done before, is it's such a long process that it's very, well, you'll know from your PP, but it's very easy to get bored sometimes, especially when you are doing the same stitch over and over. So it's not necessarily a bad thing to have a couple of projects on the go, because sometimes when you're bored with one, you can pop that down and grab the other one, but you just have to trust that your brain is able to switch between the patterns, because if they're completely different stitches and you're so locked into doing one particular stitch, it takes a lot more concentration to try and switch it up.
I think one stitch at a time is the way I'm going to do it.
I think that's the best way, and it means we'll be able to bring you the rest of the series a lot quicker.
I promise I won't get distracted before we finish this one anyway.
So we've been going 5 minutes already. I know. We've not talked at all about any useful information, but we did say this was fly on the wall. Yes. What we would be doing anyway, and we'd be having a good chat, and I'd be showing my cardigan off to you. You get to join with all of that as well. So, just to recap, when we left off the last one, I had left you with the task of finishing your ribbing for both the front and back pieces are the same. You're going to create the same rib for both. So this is just the first one. So how did we get on?
We got on good. I got on fine. I decided when I had finished the number of rows that I needed, which I think was 74. I think it was 74, wasn't it?
The pattern was 70.
Oh, it was 70.
Yeah. Now I've just finished editing the other one. I've got it memorised.
She's got it in her head. But I decided that I probably wanted it a little bit bigger. Yeah. So I've decided to go for the large, and that gave me an excuse to just do more rows. So I've kind of gone for, I think it was 84 on the next one. It might not be.
That 76 was the next size up.
Oh, clearly I just need to unpick some then, because I think I was doing too many.
Well, we need to consult the pattern anyway.
Right, I've got it here. Right.
Well, the good news is I'm pretty sure that you've got the same 8 stitches all the way along. So
Excellent.
It's not got thinner or thicker at any point, which is good. So it means you've not dropped any stitches.
I did drop a couple in the early stages, but I didn't notice it.
Okay,
and then pulled them back. But then I think I got the hang of it, of checking every couple of rows that it was the same number.
Yeah.
So,
but it's definitely, the rib is perfect. It's not kind of, you've not got any... You've not got 2 going the same way or anything like that. They have been switched properly and everything, so that's all good. Yeah, so we'll give you a close up of that in a minute. Yeah. So you've decided you're going to go for the large in the end, have you? Which means that you need 76 rows.
Okay, I think I've done 82, so we might just need to pull some back.
Well, the reason you did it was because you wanted, because this is a good way to gauge kind of how loose you want the sweater to be, because if the rib feels like it's going to be too small, bear in mind it does stretch.
It does stretch,
then that might be something that you want to consider sizing up. So you were going to go for medium.
Yeah, I think
a large would be 76.
Yeah.
So we need to work out how many we've got here and then unravel them. So why don't we film the count? And then anybody else that's at the same stage, I'm just going to pull, this is a good trick for when your hook's getting in the way, pull the loop really long. Ooh. And then you don't have to worry about accidentally coming out. And even if you drop your wool, you still haven't unravelled anything. Okay, so remember we're counting in pairs, so each ridge is 2. So we've got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12, 14, 16, 18, 20. I like to just keep my thumb on it as I'm moving it around so don't lose track. 22, 24, 26, 28, 30, 32, 34, 36, 38, 40, 42, 44, 46, 48, 50, 52, 54, 56, 58, 60, 62, 64, 66, 68, 70, 72, 74, 76, 78, and then we've got one extra there, so you've actually got 79. So we need to strip that back to 76.
Yeah, that's not too bad.
That's not too bad. So we're going to remove 3 rows. So there's 1. There's 2. And you can do it slowly to make sure that you don't lose anything that you don't want to. And then that is 3. And when you get to this, you just need to make sure you've still got your chain, but you haven't got a double stitch. So if you pull it out and you've got 1 loop there, then that's your chain. But if you go too far and you pull it out, oh, hold on, there we go. You had 2 chains there. If you pull it out and you go one too far, and you end up with a double loop, or you've come out of your stitch. Yeah. And don't worry about it, because it's really easy just to pop it back on your hook, put it back in the hole, and then repeat that stitch, and then do our chain again. Pull that long again so that we don't accidentally unravel it. So we've now got 76. Yay! So it's time to consult the pattern. Let's see what we're supposed to do next.
Okay, I'll film that bit as well. So I'll hold that on my knee.
Okie dokie.
Right, okay.
So, as it says here, the ribbing is the width of the I've lost my ability to speak. The ribbing is the width of the sweater. Easily adjust the width by adding or taking out rows. So we know we've sized up, and if you decide to do the same, great. So now you're going to turn your work and work across the long edge of the ribbed band. So basically what that means is at the moment we've been working this way, going back and forth along there. But now we're going to be turning it and working across the long edge, so across the top here. So we're going to turn it, work along the ribbed edge. We're going to chain 1, which we've already done. We did that at the end of our last row. And then we're going to be doing another single crochet, just like the stitches we did for these, except for these, they were back loop only. Yes. That's what gave us the rib. This isn't back loop only, this is just an SC, so that's just a single crochet. And it says evenly across, working 1 SC in the end of each row. So you want to end up with the same 76 stitches across as you've got rows. Now this can be a little bit tricky because obviously you've not got clear stitches to go into, because it's actually the end of the rows that you're going into. So it helps before you start to work out a system for where you're going to do the stitches. So just bear in mind that at the moment we've been double counting these kind of ridges as 2, and that makes it nice and easy to count in pairs. But the way to think of it is you've got your over and you've got your under. So you've got the ditches and you've got the peaks. Okay. So as you go along, you've got ditch, peak, ditch, peak, ditch, peak, ditch, peak. And we need to put a stitch in each one of those. Okay. So when we look at the end of the row here, on the ditch, it's quite easy because you've got a nice little hole there. So at the end of each ditch, it's quite easy to find somewhere to put a stitch. But then when you're at the top of the peak, you can see it's quite dense there. Okay. So you have to pick where you're going to put your stitch. And wherever you choose, you just want to make sure that it's the same on each one. So let me pop my hook back in, and I will start doing the first few. And then it will start to make a bit more sense. Okay, so we're going to do our first stitch in this hole here, because that's nice and easy. So yeah, put the hook in, yarn over, pull through, and then pull through both loops. So for this next stitch, I'm going to turn it like that, and I can just see that there's this kind of diagonal sort of stitch going across there. So I'm going to pick that. It's going to be stiff because these aren't actual stitches. So it takes a bit of time to get used to, but just bear in mind you've only got 76 stitches to do, and half of those are easy. So so we're going to then do the same, yarn over, pull through both loops. So that's 2. Okay, so now we're back in our ditch, so we can pick that nice easy hole again. And then that's 3. And now we want to be looking for that same diagonal ridge on the top there. Okay. Yeah. And again, it's just going to take a little bit of time to wiggle.
Does it matter if the one on the ridge goes in a slightly different stitch?
No, it really doesn't.
It really won't
You
matter.
won't be able to see it. So if we look at it more closely, you can see that you've actually got 2 options there, because you could put it through this one here, or you could put it through that one there. It's actually quite hard to see on the yellow. Let's have a look on the green and see if that stands out a little bit more. Yeah. So yeah, that might be a bit easier to see. So on the ridge here, there's our loop, that's nice and easy. But here, you can see we've got that one there that goes straight across, and you've got the diagonal one that's slightly at the back, and you've also got the diagonal one that's slightly at the front. You could pick any of those, and it really wouldn't matter if you switched between each stitch. Okay. All you've got to remember is somewhere in that little nest, we want to get a stitch. That's all.
And this is purely because we're changing direction, and we're going from sewing in a long thin line not sewing, but we're crocheting the long thin line for the rib, and we're now crocheting across to actually make the body of the garment.
That's right. So once we've got our 76 stitches going across horizontally,
yes,
we'll then be able to come back across and start doing our double crochets in those stitches, and then it will literally be double crochet all the way along, chain 2, turn, double crochet all the way along, chain 2, turn, and it will be like that until you finish the front of the sweater. So it's going to be really, really quick once we get to that stage. It's just that this is something you just have to do once, just so you can change direction. So you need to turn these end of rows into stitches. So you've got something to stitch into. You could just go ahead and start doing your double crochet stitches straight into them. But the problem with that is that because it's a bigger stitch, when you've got that slight variation in where you're putting the stitch, it might be more obvious. But because we're just doing single crochets first, it's a nice small neat stitch that you can barely see, and it almost creates like a border, like a bridge between the rib and between the double crochet stitch. So that will allow us to take what's been a horizontal stitch and make it our vertical stitch, which then makes it stretchy.
Lovely.
So let's carry on. Let's do a few more.
Let me film again.
With that. And then
Maisie's interjected herself. I'm sure you guys want mine.
Okay. So we've just done the one in the ridge, in the what did I call it before?
The ridge.
The ridge.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or a peak.
Yeah, I said peak and ridge, to be honest, both of which are pointy things. That's
things.
More of a valley. A valley and a peak is what we should have had. But anyway, it doesn't matter. So now I'm going to go in this little muddle of stitches here. So I'm just going to pick the best one, my best option, and then it's like you can see it's a bit tricky because these are tight. So it helps to just use your nail to kind of press against it, and then just make sure you've got all the fibres from the loop, that you haven't accidentally just got half or something like that. And then we can go ahead and do that stitch. Next one's really easy because we're just going to go straight in the little hole there. So you know that's so it's only every other one that's a bit tricky. And then again, I'm going to try and get through this one here. So I'm just going to wiggle it through. Now, if you're not sure how many you've done, you've got a couple of ways that you can check. So we know we're doing one in each row, so we can continue to count the rows, or we can just turn it on the top like
so
that.
We've got the little ears of corn again on the top.
So that first one is actually our chain. You can see that it's actually kind of almost going round the corner. So our first one is actually on the top here. And that's got a little bit of red fibre in it. So we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Remember, the loop that's on the chain doesn't count as a stitch because it's not been turned into one yet. So we've done 6 so far, and there's another 70 to go. So I'm going to hand that over to you.
Okay.
In fact, I'll just do a couple more.
You do a couple more.
You're getting Maisie.
Oh, did you say Maisie?
Yes.
Did someone say Maisie?
That's 8. That's 9. And that's 10. Right, so I'm going to get you to do the remaining 66.
I think we might come back when I finish this.
Well, I think what we'll do is we'll get started. We'll speed it up.
Yes.
I'll film you doing it for a bit.
Can I have my wool? It's all the way over there.
Yarn. There you go.
Is it wool or yarn?
It's yarn's kind of an Americanism, but just
as
crochet terms, we seem to use more American terms now. Everywhere, then it often gets called yarn. So even if you go to UK shops here, it's mainly because calling it wool is quite deceptive because it's not always wool.
Yes, I
wool
suppose,
is a fibre as opposed to yarn is what's actually been kind of
what it's made into.
Yeah. Right, can you do your face for me?
There we go. Do my face.
Do your face. Right, I'm going to video you doing a few.
Right, okay.
Daisy's sat there watching.
No, she's like, what's going on? Why am I not involved?
She's got a bunny on the floor there too.
She was chewing it a minute ago. She likes chewing it when Rachel comes round. I was thinking what a great idea it was to actually, is that the next one there?
So you've just done one in the big hole, so you need to...
Oh, I need to do one in the top bit there.
That's
right.
It.
what a great idea this was to film it, because by the time I get to the back, if I've forgotten everything, I can just watch my own video back.
Have you done a chain there, or did you just do a double? I can't see. Did you do a bigger stitch there? Yeah, you did. Look.
Did I?
Yeah. All that happened is you
did I yarn over too many times?
Yeah. You yarned over before you went through. So you go through first, and then.
That's because you're talking to me and distracting me. Right, so let's talk me through it. So through,
pull the thread through. That's it.
Through both.
Yeah, and then yarn over. That's it. Oh, no, just through one.
Just through one.
And then yarn over and back through.
Two.
There you go.
So let's do it again. Through this one.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yarn over.
Yeah, that's right. So you're yarn overing after you've gone yarn overing, like it's a verb. You're doing it after you've gone into the stitch rather than before. That's it. Wrap it over and then pull that through. There you go. Perfect.
I have just spent the last 2 or 3 hours doing the ribbing, but obviously that doesn't. My brain has expunged that information. That's the problem I have.
I'm not even sure that because I'm looking at it through a weird angle, but it just looked for a second like it was a big one. But they all look like normal stitches.
Yeah.
They look good.
Yeah.
There you go. So to be perfectly honest, if you don't get them in exactly the right spaces, it doesn't matter. You just need to make sure, as the pattern says, that you end up with 76 stitches that are evenly spaced. Yes. So if you end up with 2 a bit close together and then one a bit further apart, as long as you haven't got a big hole, then it's going to be fine. Yes. It's going to be absolutely fine. And it's this exact ribbing that you're doing, that you've done for the base of your sweater now. That's exactly what I've done on here. So this is the same single crochet ribbing, back loop only.
Is that for the whole thing? Did you do that?
I did that for the bands, but for the panels I actually did a half double crochet.
Half double crochet?
Yes, which is a stitch that we probably won't do in this pattern, but I'm sure I'll show you at some point. It's really not complicated, it's actually easier.
Okay.
It's kind of, to describe it very briefly, although it helps to see it, when you know when you do a double crochet, you yarn over first, then you go in the stitch, then you yarn over and pull through and you've got 3, then you yarn over and pull through 2 and you've got 2, and you yarn over and pull through another 2. So you've got kind of 3 stages.
Oh yeah.
Whereas with a half double crochet, you yarn over, go into the stitch, yarn over, you've got 3, and then you yarn over and pull through all 3. So you're just skipping that kind of double stage at the end.
Okay.
And that's basically
it's a nice stitch. Actually.
It is a nice stitch, but any time that you do a back loop only or front loop only, that's when you get this ribbing. And ribbing is good for when you need a bit of stretch, but it's also good when you're using a stiff yarn. So these are all acrylics. They're all cheap yarns that were just, as I say, left over. And the problem with them is that when you do a standard stitch, as in you go through both loops on the stitch, rather than just the front or back, that can make quite a dense kind of fabric.
Yes.
Whereas whenever you do back or front loop only, it automatically has a little bit more movement and a little bit more drape in it. So sometimes I choose to do that just because I don't want it to be, especially this, it's so big and oversized, that if it was really stiff, it would wear me. I would just be like stood like a scarecrow all the time.
It does look
not
soft
able to put my arms down.
It does look soft. It still looks like it's very wearable.
Yeah. And it's also single crochet that I used as the joining stitch. So this border all the way round.
That's what I'm interested in as well.
Single crochet that you just do so that it's visible on the outside. You can do it on the inside if you want it hidden. But I quite fancied it having a border.
Yeah, it does look nice. Now I'm just gonna stop there for a minute. Yeah, I need a tissue. So
okay. Well, I'll tell you what. We'll pause it and we'll come back when we're done. And then we'll do the next stage. Right, we're back. Nikki has finished doing her single crochets all the way along. So
76 stitches.
Let's get a close up.
Yes. Do you want to hold it out? Grab it from my knee.
Okay.
Pull out my stitch.
Right. Okay.
Let's have a look.
So we've come back all the way along from one side to the other.
I've got this lovely row of yellow corn ears along the top now.
Yes, so there we go. That's So what you need to do is count them. So just like we've shown you before, turn your work so you're looking at the top.
Yeah.
And then count. They really do look like ears of corn when they're yellow, don't they? But just 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Count all the way along. We wanted 76, which we've checked, and that is correct.
Yes.
But you just do however many you're doing for your size. So on the pattern after that, so that was row 1.
Yeah. Let me hold up this sword. Just to film it as well, so you guys can see.
And just to explain, so we've got row 1 and row 2 here, and then obviously it says repeat to row whatever, but this was just for the ribbing, okay?
Okay.
So even though it says front and back panels, and it doesn't necessarily give you a header or ribbing or anything like that, it then starts with row 1 again. So don't be confused by that, because it just means that now this, if you consider that as being like the kind of vertical part, and now we're going into the horizontal part. So we've done our chain 1 all the way across. So now we're going to chain 2, because if you remember, we chain 2 to get the height of the double crochet stitch.
Yes. And
then we're going to double crochet in that same stitch and then in each stitch across. So let's start off by showing you what that means.
Okay. It is. I'm so glad we're doing this, because I would not be able to understand what that means. It's like gibberish. It's even worse than sewing patterns. So how on earth you're supposed to be able to translate it, I have no idea.
Do you want to film close up?
Just whinging. Just whinging. Right, so let's come in.
So this is a good one here to look at to check whether you've just done your single crochet or double crochet, whatever, or whether you've actually done your final chain, because obviously you're supposed to chain before you turn. There's 2 loops there that are still on top of the yarn that's on our hook. Okay. And that means that we've just finished doing a stitch. If it was 1, we would have done a chain. So that means we've still got our 2 chains to do before we turn. So chain 1. See what I mean? There's now just 1 loop there, and 2. Okay, so we're going to chain 2 and then turn. So what this means when it says, hold on, let me get the tail out of the way.
It's a long one.
It is. What it means when it says to chain 2 and then DC in the same stitch, double crochet in the same stitch, is that basically these chains, it might be tempting to then count that as your first stitch and then do your first one into the next one along. Okay. But it doesn't want you to do that. So again, the best thing to do is to turn it so that you're looking at it vertically. Let me just put my head back in the other way so it's straighter and you can see it better. So the 2 directly underneath the hook, and actually the 2 that are before the side starts, there are 2 chain stitches. So our first stitch is this one here, on the top. So we're not counting these first 2, it's just that one there. So for our double crochet, just to remind you, we're going to yarn over first this time. That's what's different between that and the single crochet. So we're going to yarn over first, and then we're not doing any loops, back or front loops, so we want to put the hook through the whole stitch, so you've got both loops of the stitch there. Yeah, you see that? Okay. And then we're going to pull it through so that we've got 3 loops on the hook, and then we yarn over and pull through 2, so we've got 2 loops on the hook, and then we yarn over and pull through, and that's our first double crochet. Okay, so then we yarn over and we're going to the next stitch, and we're making sure that we're going under both loops and pull that through, yarn over through 2, yarn over through the last 2, and then we're just going to keep doing that all the way along. So I'll do a few just so that you can kind of get to see what it looks like when it transitions, which will be really nice and obvious because you've got 2 colours transitioning here, because you've got your green going into your yellow. Okay, so let's now turn that. Ooh. So you can see that what's happened here is you've got your 2 chain is just what's allowing you to go up the side there. So that's all that is. It's just the height. And then remember, we're looking for these columns. If you're not sure what we mean, go back and watch the first part, because we do explain that in more detail. But basically, if I stretch it, you can see a bit better. You've got these kind of columns with spaces between. So they're your double crochets.
How many have you done there? Just so that we
can see. So this is our chain. So that doesn't count. So we've done 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And we need to make sure that we've got 76. across. Okay, so we're going to keep doing that all the way across. Now if you just want to grab the pattern back,
yes,
because this is the end basically. This is basically going to be all we're doing. Go down here. So row 2, we're going to chain 2, turn and DC double crochet in the same stitch in each stitch across until we get to 76, because that's the large size that we're making. And then it simply says repeat row 2 to row, and then it gives you some options. So just remember the 3 different or the different sizes. So you've got small, medium, large.
So I'm doing
you're now doing
rows.
large. Yes, that's right. So we're going to basically do our DC all the way along, and then when we get to the end, we're going to chain 2, we're going to turn, and we're going to do it again, and we're going to do that until we have got 39 rows of double crochet. Okay?
Not by tomorrow.
Yes, you'll be surprised how quickly it will happen. But yeah, that's basically what we're going to do. And then in brackets here, this is just a reminder of your stitch count. So that's why one's in bold, so you don't get confused. So you want to do 39 rows and of 76 stitches. If you were doing a small, you'd be doing 33 rows of 64 stitches, and if you're doing a medium, it would be 36 rows of 70 stitches.
Lovely.
And then you're going to do that until you get to the number of rows or until the desired length, and then you're going to fasten off and leave a long end for sewing. Okay, so I'm just going to quickly show you how you would fasten off, just because that's the one thing that you're going to need to do before we can move on to the next part.
Okay.
So let's say I was doing it on here. I'm not actually going to cut it because obviously it's your working part. But so wherever you finished your last stitch, obviously this is middle of the row, but it would be the end of the row. Yeah. You're just going to pull it through like it was another chain. But now you can snip the tail end of the yarn, the working yarn, and then pull that all the way through. Pull it out and then tighten it. So it's just creating a knot, but you start off with a chain, snip the end, and then pull the whole thing through. Easy. That's what it means by fasten off. And it says to leave a long tail for sewing. So again, just like we've got this long one here, we also need to leave a long one when we finish, and that will help with sewing the shoulders together.
Does it matter that that's now in the middle there, that tail?
Well, it's probably going to, there'll be instructions for where you're going to use it. So I don't know, to be honest, whether we'll need it that long or not, but because I've not done the pattern before, but we'll leave it like that just because it's not really a problem. If it does become a bit cumbersome, then you could just kind of fold it up like that and safety pin it in or something. Yeah, or tie it into a little knot, because the more you work on your top, you're going to be getting further and further away from it anyway. So it's not a problem. Lovely. So that is going to be your job. And before we do the next part, you need to not only do your 39 rows of double crochet, but then you need to do the same thing all over again.
I'll see you Wednesday then.
So that's starting off with 9 chain, because that's what we did for the ribbing, and then we do our first single crochet into the second chain from the hook, and then we do 8 of those across, and then once we've done that, we can do back loop only until we get the number of ribs that we wanted, which was 76 for you, and then you're going to chain 1 and turn and come across the top and do them in each of the columns, if you like, in each of the ridges, and make sure you've got the same number of stitches across the top, and then you can chain 2 and start doing your DC double crochet all the way up. Then you'll have your front and back panel, and you'll be ready to work on the sleeves. And because it's a very simple pattern, a bit like my cardigan that I'm wearing, that's going to be a rectangle as well. It's just going to start off with a cuff rib, and then it's going to go into...
Which will be the same as that. It'll all be the same stitches.
It will be. Well, actually, let's just double check it. Let's just scroll through the pattern, because I don't know whether the sleeve will also start with the rib or whether it's going to be the other way round. Ooh, this is exciting.
It's like a different language. I've no idea.
It's exciting. This is good because you're going to learn lots of things. So the sleeves are crocheted in the round.
Ooh.
So what that means is that with this, we're working with a flat piece and we're just going to go back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. But crocheting in the round is basically when you sew something, you join it into a circle, and then you're going to continue your stitches, and it's going to grow as a sleeve without you needing to worry about that. So the other thing is that I'm just checking here. So the cuff ribbing is optional, and that's something that you do at the ends. So we start at the top of the sleeve.
Okay. I'll definitely be adding cuff ribbing.
Yeah,
Not
of
what
course.
I like with cuffs and ribbing.
But there's definitely, I'm just checking that I wasn't wrong with what I'd said before. There definitely isn't any increases or decreases. So it is just effectively a rectangle, except it's a closed rectangle, so we're sewing it in a tube. So that's actually really good, because crocheting in the round is another really important skill to have.
Yeah.
Some tops are made completely in the round. So top down patterns, you start off by doing the neck rib, and then you come all the way down, and you just increase at kind of 4 points, which creates like a raglan.
Oh, right, okay.
And then once you've got the kind of top half of the chest done, then you would move into the body.
Yes.
And then you do the sleeve separately from that. So it will teach you some good skills. But let us know in the comments below if you are following along. Let us know if it's just because the record button is the same. The light is the same colour as your jumper.
Oh yes. That was
camouflage.
Can we keep that as like a little, like Nikki's being a div?
But not only that, the red lights on.
Yeah, no. I'm not quite with it. It has to be said.
It's because your brain's focusing on crochet.
Crochet,
yes. Focus on cameras at the same time.
Sorry.
But yeah, let us know in the comments below if you're joining in, or if any of that didn't make any sense. If you need any more explanations at the start of the next video, because we will put both of these out before you've done all your work.
Yeah, but I've got a lot to do now. That's
exactly. And yeah, we'd love to get your feedback on whether you're enjoying this. But don't worry, there'll still be lots of sewing content. This is just a little treat because we're doing it anyway.
We're doing it anyway, and I had come to the end of doing my most recent hand sewing EPP quilt. I do have to still quilt it, but I have definitely put it away for a couple of months, and I was very keen to do something a bit different. And you know, because we sew doesn't mean that we just do that one thing. There are lots of things that people do. So
yeah, I think it depends why you sew, because I sew for my wardrobe. I sew because I love to wear colourful, fun, original things. So it makes sense if you are a garment maker that you want to make knitted things as well, because or crochet things, because that adds to your wardrobe and it's great for winter. I've never mastered or even tried, to be honest. I've never crocheted with really, really lightweight yarns, which would make like, you know, proper summery tops.
Summer tops,
but you can get some beautiful like mohair and silk yarns that are really thin, and you use the tiniest little hooks, and
maybe that needs to be your
gorgeous drapey things. It's more the number of stitches. I just look at them and I look at the tiny, tiny little hook, and I just think I haven't got the patience for it, to be honest. I like chunky and fast.
Yes,
that's the kind of crochet that
and
I like.
I'm so used to doing something with my hands of an evening that I can't now just sit and relax. I have to be doing something with my hands. So the fact that I don't want to start another EPP project, this is perfect. So it gives me something a bit more interesting, something which is fun.
Yes, exactly.
And I get my own rainbow jumper at the end.
Yeah, I'm really excited. Cool. All right. Well, we will see you in part 3. But before then, I'm sure we'll see you with something completely non-crochet related.
Yeah, absolutely. This is going to take me a few weeks to get that done. But don't worry, we're not going to abandon it. We're definitely going to come back and do the next step.
Yes. Okay. Excellent. Well, good luck if you're joining in, and we will see you soon.
Bye.
Hi everyone. I'm just popping back on just to show you how I've gotten on, because I have finished one of my front backs. But I also thought it might be really handy for me to show you a couple of things that I've learned along the way as a complete beginner with garment making. So there's a couple of things that I think is really easy to kind of give you a little tip as to what you're looking for when you make a mistake, but also I like to count my stitches, making it a little bit easier. So let me go down and show you my work. Okay, so here we have my finished front or back. And you can see that all of my colours have come all the way out. So I've got a little bit of changing of colour here, and I'm really pleased with how it's turned out. I've done a kind of a semi-half row here, but I've made a little deliberate mistake just to show you what it looks like. So the first thing to look for here is, can you see that I have a gap there? So when you look at it with the camera, and even once you start knowing what you're looking for, you can see that I've missed a stitch there. So I've gone too far, I've missed putting a stitch in these two little loops here, and that means I would end up with one less than I needed. So that's a good way of looking for that, because these are quite big stitches. When it looks like a very big hole, you know that you've done something wrong there. And then a little bit further on, if I can find it, what I've done is I've put 2 stitches in one place. So you can see that we're running along a single stitch, single stitch, single stitch, single stitch, and then these two seem to be joined at the bottom. And that's a really good way of noticing where you've created a second stitch in the same loop from underneath. So I've done one stitch, and then instead of going to the next one, I've done it in the same hole. And I think you can see that little V shape that it makes in comparison with how lovely, neat and straight these stitches are. So that's another thing to look for, is that little V and where they're connected at the bottom. And the way that I like to count my stitches, instead of doing it on the top, I like to count the columns, and I think that is much easier to do. And I found it that I can lay it on my lap and I can get to a certain point, and then I can put my hook in at that point. So I say I get to 20 and I plunge my hook in and go, right, that's 20 stitches. I'll move along to the next one, take the hook out, and then move along and just count each column. So that would be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Oh, that's my double one again. So hopefully these little tips, which is just what I've picked up as I'm going along, and things that I think might be useful to you as you're starting to make your front and your back, and then joining in with us to make the rest of the garment. So I'm going to unpick this row because I don't need this one, and then I'm going to tie everything off, and I'm going to start on my other one. So we'll see you soon for the next video.